So moving on to our journey. Great to have our two guests here. Paul, who's CEO of Cydar Medical, and Jan, who's come from Tilburg in the Netherlands, who's a vascular surgeon. And so we'll see a little fireside chat. Is that okay? Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that working as well, Steve? Good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, welcome. Thank you for having us. Jan and I sit across two sides of the same fence, really, in that as CEO of Cydar Medical, we're really trying to push the boundaries of innovation and AI to make a really practical difference in healthcare. I mean, we're all passionate about advancing support of patients, but trying to do that in a practical and effective way. I'll let Jan introduce himself more fully.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a consultant vascular surgeon from Tilburg, the Netherlands, and I work in a referral teaching hospital.
Yeah, we'll get a bit more into Jan's journey so far with technology as we go. To give a bit of context, I guess I started out in research myself, in molecular biology, subsequently was a corporate lawyer for my sins, got into the business side at a leading medtech company in the UK, BTG, left that at a point it was sold on to a bigger US medtech. But joined Cydar as an innovative startup in the area of AI. We'd seen how AI had transformed most other industries and areas of our life and felt it was coming of age in healthcare, so it was really out of my own curiosity. I was on the board for a year before joining as CEO and really helped the commercial scale of the company. In terms of what we do, it's quite a simple concept, but really intended to help the likes of Jan in terms of supporting patient care. This is all in the area of minimally invasive image-guided surgery, so many procedures today where you don't literally have to cut the patient open. You can deploy a stent or conduct a procedure for a very small incision. So that's tremendously effective. I think we've all probably got cases in our families where that's been tremendously impactful for the patient. But during the procedure itself, the clinician can't actually really see what they're doing. I'll let Jan expound on this. Often done under X-ray guidance, but it's challenging and the results can be very variable. So Cydar was originally founded by another vascular surgeon in the UK who was just trying to tackle that problem himself. Teamed up with an imaging scientist in the early days of AI with gaming computers in the OR trying to solve that. Created a 3D map of the patient, just of the soft tissue that can be used to plan surgery, decide where you're going to put the device or other intervention, is present in the OR. So when Jan's doing surgery, he's got a map in front of him he can trust, that can guide them, where understand the nature and positioning of the tissue in which he's intervening. But critically, what we've been doing is also trying to develop an end-to-end solution. So we're in planning, we support intraoperative navigation, and the simple concept there I would refer you to picture it would be Google Maps, literally plan your journey. But critically, we've also used AI to try to automate the capture of the outcome. So for all your decisions through the patient history, you really want to assess, has that been successful? So that can be a time-consuming process. We're just using AI to, in this case, an illustrative example would be for an aortic aneurysm, a ballooning of the vessel in the chest can be life-threatening. The definitive measure of success is that just goes down. So we're using AI to show that kind of impact. So as we've built that system, we felt it was critical to be end-to-end, to be very simple to use, to join up the care pathway. And now we can start to develop analytics that can look and assess the patient, can assist with a clinical decision, and really simply and quickly and consistently determine the outcome. So we can start to correlate now what type of patient, what did you do, what device, where did you put it, and what was the outcome. So I think our vision is for the next patient that comes in, the Jans of this world, leading interventionists, been doing this for 30 years, but shouldn't have to guess. They should be able to draw on a global data set to say what's worked in this type of patient to go beyond their own individual experience. We collaborate very closely with the likes of Jan in terms of how to make the product better and more impactful, and collaborate with our customers and the health systems, not just the doctors, to ensure it's something that's usable. So that's a bit of context. Perhaps, Jan, you can talk a little about your journey with technology. I mean, you've not just worked with Cydar, but worked with a range of leading innovations. Where have you seen the role? Just talk through some of your practical experience of where it's made a difference. And I think it's important that's the opportunity, that we also talk about challenges. What are the challenges inherent in getting on board new technology in the hospital?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So I don't know, are there any physicians in the room? Yes. Okay, so for the physicians and also for the non-physicians, Part of the work I do is treat patients that have an aneurysm. So it's a dilated aorta, and if that ruptures, you die. And we try to prevent it by putting in a stent graft system. And that is, like just Paul said, is being done by a very small little puncture in the groin. And we put in, through the vasculature, we put in a stent graft system. And what you need is a C-arm that offers radiation that you can kind of look through the patient. And we've all seen a picture of an X-ray of the thorax or whatever. So there's this black and white vision. And that's quite a poor solution, since we appreciate, as we sit here, we're all in a 3D environment and we're operating, looking at a screen in 2D. And when I started doing this kind of surgery, it took me, let's say, 45 minutes to calculate on the basis of a CT scan what kind of stent graft I was to use. And then there were some early companies that came up with more automated analysis of vasculature. So it didn't take me 45 minutes to analyze, but just a few minutes. And back in 2008, I sat down with an engineer, and it was a system that helped you pre-operatively to define how the position of your C-arm, and the C-arm, once again, that's the one that's using radiation to look through your patient. And you can use radiation a lot, but radiation is not particularly a healthy thing to use a lot. So we try to protect ourselves, first of all, and that it's not egoism, but protect yourself, first of all, because we're exposed to radiation a lot as healthcare providers. And one of the things that we could do with this software back in 2008 was to pre-calculate how the position of the C-arm should be to have a perpendicular view on a particular part of the vasculature. So that saves time and that saves radiation. So that was pretty much the first thing that I kind of thought, well, we should do this better than we've done so far. It's also relevant to protect yourself by all means. So wearing a lead, protect your eyes and so on. And then to jump a bit further into the future, as I was in 2016, I went to a meeting where the founder, Tom Carell, was there, and he first explained about Cydar, and he also referred to the navigation, that if you step into a car into an area where you've never been before, Google Drive or whatever system helps you, guide you the way. And I wrote down Cydar, very interesting. And we started collaborating more than 3 years ago now, during the COVID procedure, during the COVID period. Cydar in the beginning was a system that helped me to better look through the patient, to better appreciate where the vasculature comes off, the side branches of the aorta comes off. And since you have to put in a device that needs to be, let's say, below a renal artery and not above, because you do not want to occlude it, the circles of the orifice of the vessels on screen helps a lot to start off with. So from a negative standpoint of view, you could say Cydar is just an overlay technique like all the others, where you can simply have some help during the navigation of your procedure. But it's so not true, because the system recognizes 2 or more vertebrae by computer vision, and then automatically gives you an overview. So what I typically do, we have a C-arm, I look at a big screen, there's a really huge screen, and there all of a sudden the vasculature pops up on my screen, so I know where to navigate to. And that's pretty much the beginning. 3 years ago, I was very happy to be the first adapter in the Netherlands to have this system introduced, and ever since we're quite happy, and you guys introduced a lot of new stuff, and we're very anxious about that part as well.
That's an interesting point, because it's definitely a journey. One of the great opportunities with software is you can iterate very quickly, and when we collaborate with some of the big my old job in medtech and pharma, the sort of timing for innovation and collaboration actually relatively slow. We've got a new release every month. We can iterate very quickly. So that's a fantastic opportunity in terms of responding to very real customer needs. But I think the practical consequence is you're always having to train and educate people. It's a moving target from a regulatory and from a hospital point of view. But it has changed a lot in that time. And I think, as you say, we partly responded to the practical need to have one solution. I think one of the challenges we've seen when we talk to many hospital CIOs is there's no end of opportunity of new AI innovation. You know, it's billions has gone into funding AI startups in recent times, all of which have often a very interesting contributory part of the jigsaw. But how do you pull that all together? It's just a very, very much a simple practical challenge for a hospital to, what we hear back is for a hospital to deal with multiple vendors, 50, 60, 80 prospective different vendors. So I welcome your view on that. You know, as you championed adoption of AI through your hospital at that time, you know, how do you go about, how do they see that challenge?
Personally, I'd like to see all the AI solutions come together in a platform, and we should not compete. Instead, I think it's best if all these AI technologies collaborate. And for sure, and I think your company's done a great job in having it brought to hospitals and hospital systems, make sure that data that you collect are safe, because that's one of the most often questions that we get from peers and saying, okay, if I introduce this to my hospital, are we sure that it is a safe storage of patient data? And I catch that concern, and so did our IT people and the people that deal with regulations, with law and so on. And it's been perfectly arranged by you guys, but it's time consuming. But once it is in your hospital and you see it works, there the deeper layer of your system is being offered to us as physicians.
I mean, something very practical. If I think of the effort the company put into, which meant resources, that meant capital, in trying to build that compliant foundation, so there was absolute assurance to hospital around information security, weren't going to compromise their information security and IT security, around ensuring full absolute compliance with GDPR, HIPAA in the US, other local patient information requirements. We had to build upon that foundation. I think that was all probably time and money well spent, because it gives us our license to operate. And I think talking to many other small AI companies is probably the biggest barrier they face to scaling, is actually getting that all right and being able to provide assurance to the hospitals. When we engage a new customer, it actually starts there. I mean, we typically get the clinical champion, but we go directly to the IT leadership, to the data protection officer, and talk their language, really have to provide documents and information in a way they can assess the impact of what we're doing. But that's a fundamental requirement before you can be able to deploy any clinical benefit.
Yeah, and I think that's both very challenging as well as unique. You kind of cracked and paved the way, I think, for other companies that try to bring something to the hospital as well. I think you've done a great job in that. And it's very simple. At the end of the day, as a treating physician, and I think the physicians in the room agree with me, you simply want a system that works, you want it quick, you want to rely on, and it should do the trick that it's promising it will do. And so as a member of the advisory board for Cydar, I stress that it must work in, let's say, almost all cases. Sometimes you run into issues, but it's with all software solutions. It's not always perfect, not always 100% spot on, but should be close to it. My cell phone must work. If I log into whatever, it must work. I don't care how it works, it must work. And that's one of the things that I stress to companies like yours. It must work. We don't have time to wait. We don't have time to see whether it works. It must work. You must deliver. And that's a challenging one. And I think you're standing up very, very well with that. And the other thing is that I've been trained. I'm quite experienced now. I don't feel old, but I'm not the youngest around anymore. But I still feel very anxious to learn new things. I still feel that I'm in the midst of my career. But I had like 2, maybe 3 people that influenced my skills in technology very, very much. So I stand pretty much on their shoulders. But if you have a learning system like yours, where you put in thousands of procedures, and the system kind of comes back to me, whispering in my ear, you're about to treat this particular patient, be aware of, let's say, this conical neck or this high curvature. Be aware if you want to treat that patient in a particular way. We've had like 100 of these cases, and the outcome in 2 years is pretty poor. I'm not telling you how to treat a patient, but just be aware. So you stand on the shoulders of thousands of other implants, thousands of others who've done procedures, and not just on the 3 I'm standing on the shoulders of my teachers, but there are so many teachers out there in your system. And that's one of the biggest advantages, I think.
And that's very much how we look at it in almost that traffic warning, like, you know, going through a speed towards a speeding camera. You better let you know it's there. You can make your own decision if you want to keep your foot down, but we certainly want to be looking over your shoulder by reference to a global database. One of the advantages we've got as a cloud system is we're able to pull the data compliantly globally and just derive inferences from that. So we're certainly in a position now where we can look at data analytics for this particular type of patient. What works? And what's the shape of the prospective outcomes? We can give you a sort of prediction, if you like. We've never professed to fill your shoes in terms of taking a judgment, but provide you with the best information to do that. But just as you think about that, I mean, the landscape is different for young clinicians coming through in terms of the tools they have available to them. How are you seeing engagement in AI changing from your perspective as a clinician?
Well, I think the main thing is, like I just stated, I stand on the shoulders of just a few, and with these kind of technologies, you stand on the shoulders of so many around the world. So you kind of, the future of, let's say, the treatment is called EVAR, future of EVAR is built on the past. And so I think the younger medical doctors are very easily to embrace technologies like these, especially for the people coming, the new attendants, so to speak. I think it's quite easy for them to adapt technologies like these. And another thing that is coming up very soon is that, for example, with EVAR, now we pretty much focus on on diameter, but diameter is just one dimension. If you treat an aneurysm which is dilated, of course, it has got something to do with volume and not just an AP measurement of how many centimeters is. Let's say for AAA, you treat the male patient if it is 5.5 centimeters or more, but that's just one dimension from A to P, from anterior to posterior, from posterior to anterior. That's just one measurement. But volume is the next big thing, if you ask me, because if we treat a patient with an EVAR device, we're highly interested to see if this aneurysm shrinks, because shrinkage is a measurement of success. And what you now have just recently put to the system is that if I put a patient into the system, Cydar recognizes it, I do the procedure, Cydar looks along during the procedure, I see the patient 3 months later in the outpatient clinic, and we do a new CT scan. 9 months later, I have number 2 CT. So the system itself can looks over the shoulder with me and comes up with, well, Jan, this particular patient you've treated 2 years ago has a nice shrinkage of the aneurysm, so you have a good result. Instead of asking either the radiologist or myself to scroll down the CT scan, which takes like at least 5 minutes to judge that, and then see the patient in the outpatient clinic where I have like, let's say 10 minutes to discuss it. So out of these 10 minutes, I've lost 5 by just judging the CT scan. So if a system warns me or helps me and say, you've done a nice exclusion of your aneurysm because there is a nice shrinkage, or be aware there is growth in one particular way, and we've seen an increase of volume, then all of a sudden the system also starts to help recognizing success and failure. And that's something completely new.
And I think that's a really interesting insight around us looking over your shoulder. But just making that simple, it's an awareness. You can go and figure that out for yourself, but you simply don't have the time. We know healthcare systems don't have the resources. So providing something that offers a benefit but does it efficiently, gives you back time, gives the health system back time. And I think that goes to be able to make a much stronger ROI, or a business proposition for adoption of technology. We found we've learned our lessons there that providing a clinical benefit isn't enough alone. There's got to be a very practical demonstration of offering efficiencies and a simple return on investment. My wife was a CFO of a leading London hospital, and she just always looked through that lens. You know, if you can't offer me economic efficiencies, I can't do the most for my money for my patients. So I think we've got to be, how do we practically offer you a usable tool that offers efficiencies, improves care, and that we can make a business case around?
Yeah.
So what's your, just conscious of time now, so I will open up if any questions, but in final comments, What would your vision be? I'm tremendously optimistic about the value AI and technology can offer to healthcare. I think we've only scratched the surface. With that comes profound challenges around changing the system to be able to accommodate that. But what would you say in parting words around your optimism or otherwise around the impact of AI?
Yeah, some fear AI, so to speak. I'd say we should embrace it and be in the lead. I know exactly what I want as a treating physician for my patients, so that must be put into the system. You need my feedback to see how we define success, and if you come with tools that help me identifying either failure or success without relying on radiologist Mrs. or Mr. X, which I'm not very big fan of, or yes, I'm a big fan of her, so whatever she writes down, that's the real result, or whatever he writes down, I have to run it through myself. So if I have an objective measurement, like I just described, that would be very helpful. And in generally spoken, I think this is the area where we should collaborate. I think you cracked and paved the way for the legal part of it. You've added a fantastic tool for us to measure and start treating patient, analyzing during the procedure, even get feedback during the procedure. First post-op scans, we have some feedback, so you really can analyze, plan, navigate, and do your procedures. So yeah, embrace it.
Thank you. Certainly happy to, I know conscious of time, but very happy to take any immediate questions.
Thank you so much. Okay. So that's great. So thanks to Jan and Paul. I mean, a great concept around new technique, new device management, bringing into hospital safely, which will come in a moment. Thank you so much for coming all the way from Holland, of course, and Paul sharing your incredible experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.